For the Love of Rugby, brought to you by Blackheart, for those who ruck, maul, and of course, never back down.
Right, Ben, let's get into it. Ireland versus England. We've got a message from Nicole. She says, not so much a question, but can Ben please stop cursing us with his match predictions? Please. So, Ben, again, England is on you.
Yeah, that's on me, is it, Nicole? Do you know what? I really thought, I've said it for a number of weeks, I really thought England would do it, and we're going to talk about it, of course. But actually, I felt they got a lot of things right. They did a lot of good things tonight. They did a lot of good things in Ireland, and we'll delve into it. But yes, my predictions, they're going to turn at some point. But I really backed the boys this weekend, and they just didn't quite have enough. And I'll be able to explain by the end of this episode, Nicole. You'll know where the game was won and lost.
Just a sideshow. What do you think of Eddie Jones's hat?
It was so good seeing the beaver on the comms on the telly. But his hat was. It was just like he got higher and higher throughout the it started low and then it just got higher and higher throughout the match. It was a bit like I think it's this Scary Movie 2 or 3 or something, whatever, and the policeman comes over and he starts speaking the scene and the hat gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's sort of Eddie's hat got higher and higher by the end. But I think it's safe to say Eddie thought or found Ireland cold because he looked like he had about 88 layers on, mate.
Oh, mate, well, do you remember in training, he used to, even if it was like 10 or 15 degrees, he'd be wrapped up warm, like 3 coats on. He feels the cold. So let's set the scene for the week, say if you're in the England camp. What do you reckon having watched the game, what do you reckon the game plan was? And what do you think England were going after when they played the Irish?
Well, first and foremost, I think they wanted to stop their flow, and that's why they went with the back row pick. And I thought actually, by and large, they did a really good job of that. Ireland got momentum for 15 minutes or so, that middle of that second half. But I thought the Curry boys were very, very impressive. I thought Ben put in a huge shift, and I thought the guys that came on also added. But particularly Tom Curry. I thought he was just everywhere, mate. Just like link play, jackling, hitting things, counter-rucking, slowing the ball up, doing all those things. So I think that was definitely a tactic that they talked about and they did and they delivered, and that's trying to stop Ireland's sort of flow, because actually Ireland first half, or first sort of 45 really, they made quite a few uncharacteristic mistakes. And even the second half, there's a few offset piece moves and things like that, and Doris spilt the ball and things like that. So I think that definitely worked in terms of that selection. England would have definitely spoken about territory and where they play the game. And I thought the first 25 minutes was pretty much a blueprint of how you go away from home and how you want to execute a plan. They had variety in their kicking game. It was either going up from Alex Mitchell or going up from Marcus Smith, creating a contest, either getting a knock on or winning scraps. If they didn't win that, they'd win the collision, get Ireland on a touchline. Easiest place to defend when a team's on a touchline. And I just thought that they executed that plan really, really well for what is a fairly sort of young, or not young, but kind of a bit inexperienced halfback pairing. I thought the variety that they used and the tactical awareness, I thought they executed that very well. That would have been they would have been speaking about that for the last 2 weeks. They'd have been very aware about Ireland, make Ireland exit, keep Ireland at arm's length. If they want to go multi-phase, they ain't going to do it from their own end. And I thought England, by and large, did that very, very well for 25, for probably the majority of the first half, to be honest with you, apart from the time where Ireland obviously broke away from his try, but that wasn't through England's inaccuracies. That was just more that a little bit of strength to get him over the Mitch there and back inside. But I thought, that would have been talked about, and I thought they executed that as well, Coley. The line out, the 4-man, I said actually during the week, I said England will have to do a lot of 4-man line outs and variation. I guess that's one thing where it probably hurt them a little bit, because it's so hard to launch for a 4-man line out. And why it's hard to launch is because Ireland are able to drop the same numbers, so therefore they've got them all lined up in the back line, ready to go. And because it's a 4-man, it's like you haven't got a huge amount of protection for Mitch, so as it comes off the top, guys can fly through and try and get you, but it almost slingshots the entire the rest of the guys outside to come and defend that. So that was another thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think those 4-mans as well. A lot of the time you are taking the ball probably at the front of the line out, which again extends the play. And I think there was one where Van der Fleer came through and pressured Mitch, and you have to go back inside. So kind of it not kills your flow, but sometimes can, even if you don't win the line out in the air, you can pressure the half-back pass, and that limits, obviously, the phases you can go through. I agree with you on England's, what the tactics will look like. I think Ireland's great strength is their ability to go through the phases in the opposition half, especially, and test defences, with that ball movement, all that kind of stuff. So I think England's tactic was basically, let's not get stuck in our own half, let's not give Ireland possession in our own half, which again, you say majority of the time they were kicking, Mitch is kicking box kicks onto Lowe, Freeman, Freddie getting in those sort of battles and making a spoil, and then making line legs, and even like playing to the edge. Murley's first try came from basically playing to the edge and Slade kicking it behind. There's a couple of times, 2 or 3 times in the game where it's just pinning them back, turning them around, which is a brilliant tactic. And I think so for that 25 minutes, I think what hurt England in the first half was discipline. Obviously, Marcus Smith got a yellow card, but that was on the back of sort of, I don't know what the penalty count was at that point, but it was sort of penalty, and just when you're giving Ireland shots with Ireland's line out, I mean, the Currys, bailed England out. And Earl, I think that back row, Cowan-Dickey, the Jackal, which I think obviously they were in their team to do, not say bailed England out, but the defensive stand they'll put on their 5 metre line in the 22, like Ireland go through the phases, and the sort of ability of England's back row and Cowan-Dickey to slow the ball down or turn it over, spoil Ireland's attacking plan. But again, that first try came from 50 out. It's, England defended so well, and it's basically just a missed tackle. Mitchell goes high and low, gets around, and then they're through and offloads. It's one of those, again, you saw a couple of those in the autumn from England where it's, the defence is really good inside their own 22 and when the pressure counts, but it's just a long range try which hurts.
There was a couple of long ranges that you'll look at and just think, could you have defended slightly better? But talking about defence, the blitz that we knew it is no longer there. And I liked what I saw. It was still off the line. It was still trying to put teams under pressure and getting high in the eye line and forcing mistakes and trying to force errors. But it was a lot more connected and a lot more together. And, England had good width in their D. We've seen in the autumn particularly, the wingers almost defending it like outside post and coming in and leaving acres and acres. And that wasn't the case. So you can see already they've changed that philosophy. The Felix Jones model that Joe Alab inherited and tried to run with, you can see that obviously he's somewhere in between, I'm sure, of what Joe sees and Felix. So I like that they're still aggressive, Coley, but it looked way more controlled. And by and large, like especially on like goal line defence and things like that, like England were so tenacious and like flying in. And I was like, first half, and we'll talk about the second half, of course, but first half, I was proud watching the boys. Like they were fighting for everything, scrapping for everything. And that's what you've got to do against Ireland and any team. Like England were making it difficult, and England were becoming, England were hard to play against in that first half because of the territory they were doing and the way they're executing their game plan, but also because of the way that they were targeting the breakdown, the way that they were way more connected in defence and sort of forcing more errors out of Ireland than we normally see.
Oh, definitely. I think, let's say you look at the back rows, as I said before, the breakdown is, I think England were able to slow Ireland's ruck down with that sort of test second man Jackal. Even if they're not stealing the ball, they're just bringing defence in, slowing the release of the breakdown. So, as your Currys did, Earl did, Cowan-Dickey, I mentioned those, Itoje, I think that allowed England to get organised around the corner, get the fold right, and then they were able to press, a couple of that arrowhead we talk about with Ireland, like they were getting hit and hit hard. And I think even sometimes they played out the back, like Itoje scragged him a couple of times. And there's a try gets called back for a knock on from Marrow in the tackle, but it's kind of, you can see England is still trying to hit things and go forward and be physical, which is, that was sort of part of the Felix Jones things, but they're just not as probably aggressive in the outside channel. So you see the defenders sitting off a bit more and flagging, which I think, suits the game, suits the way England have traditionally been solid defence, and say the breakdown, when you've got blokes like Curry and all the Currys, Ben Hurt, all those blokes can Jackal, you want to let them go to work, don't you? So you want to hit and roll and let those guys go and make smart decisions on the ball and get the ball back.
They can also run, which sounds obvious because, for rugby, of course you can run. But what I mean by that is these guys can go up and, like you say, the outside backs or the guys on the edges can be a little bit more patient because they can recover. Guys like Ollie Lawrence, Henry Slade, Ben Earl, the Curry boys, like these guys can move laterally and quick and cover the ground. So I thought it was better. I thought it was better. It looked more. I looked watching it. I had confidence that that they could hold it out. But ultimately, some clever plays by Ireland at times did unlock it. But England would be better on the back of having that D system. But it seems strange, isn't it? Like they're gone like with a blitz, and now you can see that they're not doing that. But I kind of liked what I saw. It reminded me a little bit under sort of John Mitchell, where it's hard and it's cutting down time and space, but it's pragmatically done.
I said previously on the podcast about how I would be surprised if England went away from the Felix Jones, the heavy blitz system, because of the way it's sort of they spent a year investing in it, where actually thinking about it, I'm not surprised, because I say the coaching staff, Steve Borthwick, will have looked at what he thinks is best for his team. He'll have looked at all the stats, looked at where the tries are scored from, when they're scored, and realised done what's best for the team to bring that back. And I think they've adjusted the defence. But actually, I think having been in that system and having known that system, where sometimes, how do I put this, is unless you've been, say if you want to have a line speed, say of a certain level, until you've been past that, you don't know if you can reach that level. But I think under the Felix Jones blitz is like, because it was so aggressive, you can kind of go, actually, this is flat out 100% aggression. Whereas we can wheel it into 60, 70% or whatever it is, and we know where we are. Whereas sometimes I think teams kind of go, if you've got no line speed, it's then very hard to go get aggressive and get up to 50, 60% line speed, because you've never done it before and you think that 20 is good. So actually I think England have broadened their horizons defensively with that Felix Jones system, and that was about picking out what's best from that system and works with the team in regards to not having, your outside backs running 300 kilometres a game up and forward, up and back, and that kind of stuff, and being able to have these back rowers on the inside and covering ground and making tackles and getting off things. I think it's the defence looks, as I say, it was a couple of long range tries, it's a couple of really good, we'll get into the tries, but say first off, it's one missed tackle, James Lowe goes through, another one sort of a good play where Lowe hides behind a breakdown, a really good thought out, well played thing. The defence actually wasn't, it was a positive. I know it's tough to say when you concede 4 tries, and it sounds just a bit like, oh yeah, you're just saying that, but actually I think defensive effort and stuff against Ireland, the team that they are at home, I think it was impressive.
With the D, Coley, it's about getting the ball back as quickly as you can, being aggressive, doing all those things, but having discipline with it. And England actually conceded 9 defensive penalties to Ireland's 4 when you look at the Sage insights on it. So although there was definitely looked more organised, I looked more confident watching it and everything like that, if they can just marry it up with a better discipline, then you're suddenly looking at this defence going, okay, now we're seeing progress in that. Now we're looking at a team that's like generally very difficult to break down, because you just don't want to give away those cheap pens that gives you easy territory losses for the opposition to then launch again.
Well, we said it last night with France-Wales, didn't we? Wales conceded penalties, whatever it is, and it's like you can't win test matches conceding 10 plus penalties, or it's very hard to win test matches if you concede 10 plus penalties and to give away 9 defensively. But yeah, a couple of those are on line breaks, not getting back on side, so they're fairly easy fixes. There's one where I think Cam Nicky got done for not rolling away when he tackles Lilker, who just basically holds on to him. And it's kind of like sometimes referees, it's like, oh, you're not rolling away. It's like, well, it's obvious he's not rolling away, because he's trying to move and yet not, so he's been held in. It's kind of stuff like that, which I'm not saying the referee's wrong or right, but it's just a bit like another day. Sometimes the ref goes, actually, no, that's you're being held in. Slow ball because you're being held in. So, and I'm sure England will definitely not be happy with 9 defensive penalties, and they'll be working on that, because also I think Marcus goes to the bin in the first half because he's offside defensively, and it's multiple offences, but it's not an easy fix, because if it was easy, you just wouldn't concede any, but it is something they will work on and build into their system. They will practice hitting, rolling and jackling at the right times. I think I saw clips on England's YouTube shorts, where the back rowers practicing like jackling, and then if there's a body there, they leave it alone and making right decisions around breakdown. So that decision-making process is all going into what they do. So it's just about actually executing on the field.
Absolutely, mate. And, so that's sort of, if I look at the second half then and where the game's actually won or lost, it was sort of this 15-minute spell. And some of it was discipline, and some of it was just, England were pragmatically smart first half, and then they tried to be pragmatically smart second, but for 15 minutes, Ireland they just kept England in their own half, and England couldn't get out efficiently. So, I was actually disappointed with there was a lot of chat around Caden Murley when Gibson Park booted this ball, and it looked like it was going to run dead, and Caden picks it up and runs it out. Like, if you look at I think it's like the third replay they play, it clearly hits his hand, and they don't mention it, which annoyed me because, it's an obvious thing that he's hit his hand.
Yeah, the fact he sprints after it so hard, it probably means it's been touched by him. And the fact he tries to run it out, you're a bit like, yeah, no, I'm guessing he's touched it. And then the third replay showed him touching it, but they didn't bother mentioning that.
So we'll mention it. So we will mention it, mate.
Yeah, we'll mention it, yeah. But international rugby is those massive swings, because leading up to that, I think England had attacked, Mitchell thrown a forward pass to Genge. England sort of got possession in the Ireland 22. There's a scrum.
Looked good.
We looked good. As England's penalty at the scrum. Ireland booted to the 50-metre line out, a couple of phases. Gibson Park sticks it up. That gets bobbled around. The next thing, Ireland have got a 5-metre scrum on England's goal line. So they've gone up they've gone 80 metres up the field in pretty much 3 phases of play. And that's those test match rugby where against the best teams in the world, you can't. That's so much of the game. You could come from 1 minute potentially points at one end of the field to then almost conceding at your own. And I say there's those massive swings that good teams like Ireland find ways of exploiting. And that's kind of like where the game, not saying the game's lost, but those swings you have to manage in the game. And because you go from, say, attacking to then defending on, you go like defending. Perception, the referee's mind changes. You just defended. And it's, you know what I mean? The whole sort of swing of the game and the perception can change in those moments.
Well, the ref's perception can change. Exactly right, Colin. England were building nicely. Great little ball by Mitch. Then to Genge, you actually get in the offload. And you're thinking, it's 10-5 at that point. And you're building nicely. But like you say, and then Ireland get down there, then the kick. So, we actually got a question from Tilly. And it says, what did you make of Caden Murley's debut? And I got to say, like I just said then, is like, it just annoyed me that they didn't pick up on that, because he actually does amazingly well to get out of that position. He chases it back. He gets it. Van der Vlier's like all over him, and he scrambles out and just gets over the line. England get carried over, but they end up exiting and getting away from that scenario eventually. Ireland get an advantage, I think, or some sort. They go to width, and I'm gonna go on a bit of a rant here. Ireland go to width. It then ends up with a little bit of a penalty advantage. The whistle goes, and Lowe and Freddie Stew have a bit of a tussle. Ref gets everyone in and goes, right, next time anyone runs in, it's going to be a yellow card. So you're like, fair play, ref. Fine, settle it down. And we're about the love on this show, but I've got to bring it up. Then England do a box kick. Chandler Cunningham's chasing it, and he's trying to time it perfectly. Like, he's trying to wait for Keenan to, as soon as his foot hits the ground, Chandler wants to like hit him into next week. Doesn't get the timing right. Just ever so slightly wrong. Penalty. No issues. It's a pen. He gets it wrong. I'm sure he's talking about. They all come running in, Lowe and all that coming running in, and nothing's done. I'm like, and I thought Marrow had an amazing game. I thought Marrow was outstanding. I loved how much of a presence he had. I loved how he was at the ref, like listening to the ref, like on his shoulder for every decision, really influencing him. But I just think there was an opportunity there to go, mate, hang on a minute. 10 minutes ago, you were telling me that they run in. Like, that could have been a penalty reversed. Because from that, Coley, they kick down there. They go to the 5-man line out. They hit it up. And this is where it's a clever play, to be fair. They hit it up. They come back against where the lineouts come from. And they run it with like 2 forwards from the line out coming back. So there's just 2 forwards, and James Lowe's just sat ever so slightly behind Tyg Byrne. As if Gibson Park's going to play Tyg Byrne and then he'll play it out the back to James Lowe. Gibson Park knows exactly what he's doing, takes one step and literally engages with Genge. Like, Genge has to hit him. Like, Genji's that first defender on that short side. He has to hit Gibson Park. James Lowe starts from behind Tyg Byrne, and as Gibson Park takes that pick, they just flatten up, and then James Lowe goes straight through that hole. If anything, maybe Chandler could be a little bit tighter to Genge, but he's looking at Tyg Byrne, and I get it, because he's expecting him to get it to then play out the back, and he doesn't. They go clean through. Low back to Byrne, and they score. But it all comes from that bit, and I was just like, I looked at it and I just thought, that is test match rugby. Like, where your timing on a tackle is half a second too early, and then you just, in a club game, it doesn't cost, like, not, I'm not saying it costs you, but you don't get punished for it. But at test level, it punishes you. So yeah, that's my little take on that.
So speaking about that, it was my annoyance of it's like parenting. Say, if you tell your kids off and say, I'm going to take that away next time I'm going to take that away, and you don't, it's your kids run rule, and I think like run riot, and I think like the referee's gone, any more of this pushing and shoving off the ball, 10 minutes in the bin. It happens, and nothing. He doesn't react, doesn't do anything. If you're, I know you said Mario had a great game. Like, if Mario goes up to the referee there, is he going to change his mind? Is he going to do anything? I mean, it ends up being not a massive swing point. It ends up being a big swing point of the game. But like, you captained Leicester today. But you go up to the referee and say anything, but the referee, he's not going to go, oh yeah, no, actually I did say that. Here's a yellow card, is he? It's quite a tough thing. And so the referee needs to...
It is difficult.
You kind of want them to be strong in that situation.
Yeah, it is difficult. Like I say, I've got a lot of praise for Mal. I thought he had an outstanding game, and I really liked the way that he was just... Wherever Ben O'Keefe was, it just seemed that Mara was right there, trying to influence everything like that. But I just looked at that and thought, well, it's not a Mara thing, it's a Ben O'Keefe thing. So that's how I saw it.
Because the problem as well, if England pile in there, if they see one of their players getting pushed, like Chandler getting pushed, and you pile in on Porter and Lowe, who did the push in the first place, it's probably end up then England get the yellow card and then get penalised. So you kind of like, it's one of those things, isn't it, where it's like, you get done for retaliation. So England, fair play, held the discipline there, but you're a bit like, if the referee said no pushing and shoving, then he has to act upon that.
Yeah, you're right. Let's talk about the other try that kind of, it felt like put the nail in the coffin for England, although the late 2 tries was good to see from England, because I still think for all the positives from the game, and there was a lot, and I really mean that, there was a lot of positives I saw from England, the attack was still, I didn't quite, and I know it was, some of it would have definitely been game plan because of the way that they tried to play the territory battle and everything like that. But I still think there was opportunity to maybe move the ball a little bit, and we saw it back end of the game, but I still couldn't quite see a consistent shape or style as such. However, it was nice to see them get a couple of late tries. But I want to just touch on Ireland's one, like I say, the one that kind of put the nail in the coffin is, because it's a well-ran move. It's a really very well-ran kick return. So kick return is now treated, for listeners, it's almost like your third set piece. So you've got your scrum set piece that you can launch from. You've got your line-out set piece that you can launch from. And kick return is another. Given how much England kind of kick the ball and knowing that they'll sort of go contestable, if you win that, you can almost set it up as a structured play. And what Ireland do this time, very cleverly, as you know from the podcast, we've spoken a lot about from touchlines forwards running as a pod of 3 in that sort of arrowhead. But this time, Ireland run it as a 4-man, using 4 forwards, and it normally hits the middle forward on the 3-man pod, and that guy can either pass on the outside, carry himself, or tip inside. This time, from like a structured kick return, it goes in front of the second forward all the way to the third forward, who's normally the tip liner. He gets it, he tips it to Cronin, who's that 4th guy. So really clever. It cuts out a load of defenders and he goes clean through, mate. Very, very clever. They go a phase. They then go left again, pull it out the back on that little pod of 3 again, give it to Dan Sheehan. You got to say, for a hooker, mate, he can make things happen. I think actually Sheehan was the one that actually tipped the ball on the 4-man pod. And he gets it again, long pass to Lowe. And you know when like the ball in air, because people will be saying like, you could look at it and go, Freeman's got to tackle him there, or how does Lowe, how good? When the ball's in air that long, you like Fremo and anyone on those wide channels, you brace yourself. So you're watching the ball, and as the wingers catch it, you kind of end up planting your feet because you're thinking he's going to dep inside, but Lowe, as he catches, he sort of lands and not gooses, but sort of re-accelerates and just gets around Tommy. And then back inside to Dan Sheehan, who of course crashes over. So like I just saw, when I saw that bit of attacking, like structured play, it was very clever, well executed. And that's kind of Ireland, that sort of epitomises Ireland when I think of how Ireland play, and that little bit of clever sort of ball movement in the way they play. So very well ran, very well executed from a kick return that.
Yeah, and I think waiting until the second half in some regards is quite an interesting one as well, because obviously they didn't run in the first half, but it's almost like, did they wait for Caroline to come on the field, or was it always going to be a second half play? Because obviously you run in the first half, teams can adjust. It's just interesting the way that sort of, you make the adjustment whether it's at half time or whatever to make that play. Because normally, say, as we've said before, it's like you go to with the set piece moves over as you come into the game, don't you? And you normally use them all up in the first half. And that kick return one as well is kind of like, you're surprised you didn't see it in the first half. But then I guess part of that was the territory of where England were kicking to and actually making Ireland play from deep. In the second half, that was able to sort of get shortened up, and Ireland had a bit more kick return ball around midfield and in England's half. So that's probably where that came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually got a question here from Derek, and it says, is James Lowe one of the most annoyingest players to play against, or would you love to have him on your team?
He's just a competitor, isn't he, really? I think like he's probably one of those players that 20 years ago he'd been punched in the face every match, and he probably wouldn't be as annoying. But you get them in the game today, and he's a competitor, and he just, he wants to win the game, and I don't find him annoying as such, but he plays an edge and wants to get in the opposition's face and wind them up, and I think that's what the game needs. Those kind of players. Doesn't need those kind of players, but the game is better for having those kind of players. So yeah, he can do what he wants with as long as it's in the laws.
He's competitive, isn't he? And he's into things, and he's into that, and he's just competing, So I think with someone like that, like they're always nice to have in the team. We played with a few, to be fair. Ashley was always pretty like that, wasn't he? Would often give it out, but you want him on your team without doubt. But Lowe, to be fair, his left foot kicking is often very, very good, but he had a few today. By his standards, he probably didn't have. I mean, he created 2 tries. I get that, but in terms of that left foot cannon that he has, so often is pivotal to that. And there was just a few that he didn't get right. But yeah, he's just competitive. You can just see it. He just oozes it by the way that he's into it and just sort of G'ing up his team and getting into the opposition. So it's rugby. That's what happens. Don't worry about it. I did like Coley, and it is always the case because it's Six Nations and it's like the rivalry between the two teams. But I like there was a lot of niggle between the two teams today. It was intense and just competitive and niggly, and it's brilliant because you're in it, aren't you? Like it's you versus the entire stadium versus the 15 in front of you and the entire stadium. And I don't know, there's something like amazing about that. Like, when I think of Test rugby, what I'll miss, it's almost like that where you're like proper up against it, and it's like it's only you lot versus everyone, and it's just like the intensity of it. And you almost wonder, was it, people will probably ask, is it because of last year and England winning at the death that made it competitive? It's England Ireland. It's always been like a huge fixture, and that will never change.
Oh yeah, and I think as teams, you want to see, as fans, you want to see your team standing up for itself. And I say, if someone does cross a line or anything, you want to see blokes, fighting for each other. I know you can't really fight now. Well, you can't fight nowadays, but like, those big pile-ups and stuff. You want people in there, and because it means they care, and it means that they're not taking a backward step, and that's both teams. And that's what you sort of want as a fan, as a person watching it. It adds to the intensity. I think stadiums kind of, you can feel a crackle sometimes in the stadium when those kind of moments happen. And it gets things going up, and the intensity rises in those periods afterwards. So, yeah, I think England, you go to the Aviva, you don't want to be seen backing down. If there is James Lowe doing stuff, then you got to sort of pile in and see what happens. As long as you don't say hurt your team, which has happened in previous years. I remember it happened a couple of times. It's part of the game, and it shows the team's up for it and wants to be part of it and wants to be there. So Ben. Having watched your great preview episode, Dan Watson, you obviously spoke about Prendergast and what a talent he was and how he'd be pivotal to the game. How do you think he actually played today?
I thought he went pretty well, to be fair. He's kicking out a hand, he's going to that high crossfield kick that so often Ireland do. We spoke about that with Ant, that he'd be doing that. I think by and large, he controlled it okay. He's still a young lad. So, physically, he's still got some way to go because you can see, teams are coming down there. Like, Ollie Lawrence carried one off a scrum, like proper went after him. I think he probably felt that one. I think Genji carried it in one point, but he looks like he's maturing with every minute more he plays. You can see, I like how he distributes and brings others to the game. Like he's one of those guys that straight away looks like he's got time on the ball. But look, mate, for me, there's a lot of hype around him, and which is great, but like he's still young into his Test career. Just let him unfold, and people are going, he's like a young Johnny Sexton. No, just let him be him. Let him be like the best version of Sam he can be, and he'll go and he'll just carry on going how he goes. I actually thought Jack Crowley did very well when he came on. I thought he steadied it pretty nicely. I thought he moved the ball pretty nicely. I would say though, Pendergrass, one thing I did like is a couple of nice distribution balls where he just squared up at the defender and put a lovely little overs pass on and just got on the outside of England's defender. So he's got some nice touches without doubt. He's got a big future, but I feel like, I'm not in Ireland, but I feel like there's a lot of hype and expectation already. So yeah, I'm excited to see where his career goes. It's still early, but I like what I see, mate. I like what I see. There's no point. I'm not going to start comparing him to other people. He's just got to be the best version of him, but he's got some nice touches. And I dare say, like, if you look at it, he's the man in possession of the shirt, you'd say.
I think teams, nations are desperate, fans are desperate for like superstars of the game, superstar 10s and stuff. And actually it's like Ireland won today. Like, the bloke did his job. He doesn't need to be a superstar in that team.
No,
he just needs to
did his job. You're right.
do his job. And that's, you got Gibson Park inside him who's brilliant. You got a pack that you will execute. Like the set phase moves, they've scored off, a couple of those. The four-man, as you say, the four-man sort of arrowhead, the James Lowe break up the middle. Like, Ireland they're kind of set up that, yes, you'd like to have a superstar 10 to win your game if needs be, but they've never, I know Sexton was brilliant, but he was a system player as well. He had some lovely touches, but it was all sort of like he was a cog in the system, and that's what you kind of want your 10 to be. You want someone that brings other players into the game. And some of the best 10s, yes, they get sort of superstar status on the back of it, but it's their ability to make other people around them look good. And that's, I think that's what he did today, and he was good. And as you say, let him play and let him develop and see where Ireland can go with him.
Absolutely, mate. We got a question from Jordan Coley. Why do England struggle in the last 20 minutes? Does moving Marcus Smith to fullback stunt the spark going forward?
Why did England struggle in the last 20 minutes? Well, I don't think today I thought they actually sort of, I know, final 10 they scored 2 tries, so turned it around. I think there were just moments in games where any team momentum goes against you, and against the best teams in the world, and England have played, well, 8 or 9 test matches against top 4 teams in the world, that those teams will punish you, and that's where you have to learn that you can't do it. So, but that happens in every game. So yeah, if I knew why England struggled in the final 20 minutes, I don't think they struggled today in the final 20 minutes, to be honest. I think momentum was against them. They came back and scored 2 tries.
It was a 15-minute spell that ultimately cost them, where they compounded errors, like went error on error and backed them up with either losing the high ball, with not getting out efficiently enough of their half, and just momentum swings, or when England did kick to try and compete, the kick was too long, so it didn't give the chasers a chance to get in the air and compete. So I don't think it was just a 15-minute spell, and the game got away from them. And then the last 10, like you say, they're probably some nice tries from England. Ollie Lawrence, I liked what I saw. Again, nice offload. The Freeman one at the end, that was kind of, I don't know, I think that Ireland thought it was a knock-on. Who cares? England get a point out of the game, which was key. And I just would say, Coley, to that question that we just asked there, I think Marcus going back to fullback, back into the game, makes sense when England having to chase the game. England having to chase the game. It was 27-10, I think, when he moved there. Like, you're going to have to create something. So why not bring Finn Smith on at 10, put Marcus at fullback, because things happen around Marcus and he's got a bit more room there. And equally, Finn Smith can make things happen as well. So I just think it makes sense from a substitution point of view to move him there back in the game, especially if England are chasing it. Now, if England aren't chasing it, then no, I'd leave it how it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think having Marcus, the ability to do that only helps the team, because he can set up the team how you want to play. And if you want to have a fullback that, like Marcus, who's a great open field runner, can step and create stuff, then you can put him there. But at the same time, in a test match, Ireland, who you think they're going to kick the ball high, your kicking game, you want to go up and compete and get the ball back, that maybe that's not his strength at fullback. So, you can pick your horses for courses in some regards, and it just helps England all round have those abilities and those players with different skill sets to be able to do stuff.
Well, I'm excited for next week. Le Crunch at home. Of course, we will be doing corporate and getting front row seats to watch the great Anton Dupont and see where England team fare next week. So plenty of positives. Some areas, of course, to work on, but by and large, I saw quite a lot of good stuff from England today. So I can't wait for next week.
Me too. I think it was a start, and it's not that you obviously want a victory, but at the same time, I think it's the performance was all right from England.
So that's England covered off. But some big news regarding an England player. Ellis Genge will be at our Bristol live show on the 23rd of May. Link for the tickets is in the episode description. And thanks for watching on YouTube. Please comment below your favourite moments and subscribe for more Six Nations content.